mix it up.
That's funny.
Good morning, Chair Vollendroff, members Garrett and Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you very much, Deb. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Board Caucus meeting for Tuesday, February 4th. We have a fairly light agenda, although I say that, although we're in session, I don't know if that's ever very light. So we will start with a legislative update from Mark Webster. So Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Vollendroff and members of the board. Today is a big day in the House Consumer Protection and Business Committee with a series of cannabis bills getting a hearing. There's the perennial one allowing out-of-state investment, which is a very divisive issue within the industry. But among the bills is one that really directly impacts our work. House Bill 1551 would pause the social equity in cannabis program that we operate and would postpone opening the second round of applications, the one authorized under Senate Bill 5080. It appears to pause the first round applicants as well, and that's something that we're going to alert members about. Given some of the directives on testimony, I think we're going to submit written testimony, expressing some of that technical feedback. Our partners at the Department of Commerce are going to do the same. Our first agency request bill is scheduled for exec in the House on Wednesday. Yeah.
Would you prefer questions? I have a couple of questions about
let's
1530 or 51. Okay. Board Member Garrett, I see. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are the testimonies? What are they saying as to why they want to pause it?
So we did speak with the prime sponsor, Representative Reeves. I think that the issue is fundamentally, given the trouble that so many of the first round applicants had in finding a location or opening up, do you hurt them and the second round by putting another group into the queue, as it were? Like, you haven't finished the first round, folks. They're not all opened up. Is it a good time to put 52 more folks into that process, or are there some structural barriers that we need to address beforehand? So the bill also directs the agency to report back to the legislature in December of this year on what those barriers are and maybe some ideas on how to address them. It's a pretty involved study. It involves a lot of public comment and soliciting feedback from those who have been licensed as well as those who haven't. A lot of public comments sessions. So it's a pretty involved piece of work. I think from our point of view, we know what the major barriers are already. It's that securing a location, fighting through the maze of local ordinances and the buffer zones and all of that. So, but I think that's the intent is let's just take a minute, study what we need to do or what needs to change, and then restart it. The pause is basically only 1 year. So,
okay.
So Mark,
of course, go ahead.
Question about the pause for those in the first round. Are we hearing from people who are in the first round and their reaction to this, and just wondering about the thought Anyway, I see a distinct difference between pausing us moving forward in the second round and people that are already in process, and just wondering what we're hearing, seeing, and thinking in this area.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I don't know if that was intentional or not. That's our read of the bill, that it would pause it for both groups. I think that makes, I think that's one of the things that we're going to point out to members. Like, did you intend this? Because I think it makes a lot less sense. If some folks are very close to securing a location, maybe already have, and just haven't opened, you don't want to pause it for those folks.
Right. Okay. Yeah, this is my first hearing that it was for both groups. I thought it was for the new group.
Because that's the way it's been described to us. So this may have been an oversight, but I think it's really important to point out.
To clarify,
To clarify. Yeah, and again, that's our read, not a lawyer.
Speaking for one board member, just saying from this board member's perspective, that I would be opposed to pausing it I'm not making a stand on whether it's paused for this next round, but at least for that those that are in process, I just don't think that's a very good idea if in fact that's the way it's intended to be. Hopefully that's just an error. Mark, do you have a sense, like when you say like these pauses, like and you said 1 year, can you, I just am wondering, like, how much would a 1 year pause actually do? And what are our thoughts about the timelines that they're talking about currently?
Yeah, I think 1 year isn't going to do a whole lot. I think it's a very fast
Say more
timeline.
about that, because I think I hear what you're saying and understand, but just say more about that.
So again, I think the primary barrier that a lot of these folks have faced is finding a location that is permissible or permittable at the local level, given some of the buffer zones. Seattle has them not only for around schools and the like, but between cannabis businesses, and that's proved difficult for some folks. Other cities, of course, don't allow them at all. So navigating all of that is tricky. I think unraveling that or making changes to that is going to be a very involved process.
Yeah.
We don't control local land use policy. So I think it's going to be a matter of sitting down with the cities and counties, figuring out where there's some room for compromise. Um, that sounds like a pretty involved project. So I
Yeah.
don't know that we can do that uh, under the timelines in the
And
bill. And I
And
would
one
just,
of the
yeah,
things with the task force and stuff, right now, licensing has sent out letters to all of the municipalities
yes,
again. And this time I told them to target city managers or folks within the municipality that's responsible for their budget, because we know a lot of folks' budgets, they're hurting.
mm,
So this might be the time, and I know of one that has opened up,
yes, yeah,
but this
yeah,
this would be the time now to send out that report they showed us in one of the meetings, Jim, of the revenue, and the
Yeah.
ones that had zero and on and on.
mm-hmm,
They're
mm-hmm,
sending that information out along with the letter and to all of the municipalities to take a look at. Here's a revenue opportunity for those that have zero and
yeah,
things, and hopefully we will get some traction with that.
yeah,
Instead
Right.
of, like I said to them, stop just sending the letters to the same people you've been sending them to, and let's target people that's responsible for budgets within those municipalities.
Yeah. That's great.
it is.
So we know all of this, the task force, and been doing everything we can behind the scene to help.
Yeah. And it looks like it's having an effect, as you said, since I think one city did open up, I think, after
Yeah,
getting one of those letters.
yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Pete, do you have a question?
Yes, a quick question,
Yeah.
two actually. First, was this pause added to a bill that had already dropped, or was it
No.
N 1551 originally?
Yes, it was the bill to do this originally, so it wasn't
Oh,
added.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
And the other question, I remember when we were debating in Seattle the issue about a buffer around existing retail stores.
Yeah.
And I know one of our concerns at the time, mine, was whether or not those stores, quote unquote, had actually opened a premise,
Mm,
right?
yes.
And I'm just wondering, is that still an issue? Or do we have restrictions now on the length of time that a licensee has to actually open their doors?
I don't know. I think I might defer that one to our folks
I
in
so
licensing.
we did address that, Pete, and we did set time frames, and we have a team in licensing that monitors that to make sure if they're not open, they've met the requirements and things. But that was an issue years ago.
Right.
Yeah,
Especially if the buffer is around a an imaginary store, right?
Right, right,
A theoretical store, I should say.
Yeah.
right.
yeah.
Okay, thank
Or,
you.
yeah, yeah, securing a location just to prevent others from opening, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, moving on, I guess, our first agency request bill is scheduled for exec on Wednesday, so it's great to see that one move. The second one, which is on mass permits, the first one is on that medical cannabis excise tax exemption. The second bill on mass permits should follow soon. It's just been a little bit behind. The Senate is working on board member confirmation hearings. I know Jim's appointment is in their queue. We had a conversation about that yesterday, and they'll look for a date that works for you. We have to see where the appointment paperwork for you is, Board Member Holmes, but I just think it'd be nice to do those on the same day if we can.
Yeah.
And then we have some big presentations coming up to the legislature. Tomorrow morning, Tony and George will present on agency IT work in the House Technology, Economic Development, and Veterans Committee. And then next week in the Senate Labor and Commerce Committee, licensing is tasked with presenting on two kind of distinct topics. First, on cannabis business structures. This has been a very hot topic recently. Ownership versus management agreements, maybe franchise and IP agreements. And then second, an update on the social equity in cannabis program. Becky did a great job presenting on social equity in the now defunct House Regulated Substances and Gaming Committee this past December. But we haven't spoken on the ownership structures before. And this is a very hot topic with some industry members arguing that some retailers control, maybe not own, but control more than 5 stores, which is the statutory cap. And I know last time, oh, I see there's a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, quick question. Who from licensing is presenting on both of these?
I think it's still somewhat up in the air, but I think it'll be Nicola Reed on the ownership structures, and perhaps Becky or somebody, one of the deputies on social equity.
Okay. Well, I know that the ownership discussion's been going on, that there's been discussions. I just want to go on record of saying I share some of those concerns and want to just pay attention to this. And I don't know if other board members, I sometimes forget whether I want to observe that session. So my plan is to observe that. And again, I'm a little off to check with Jonathan. I guess I'm maybe asking the other board members, and maybe Ollie, you know this, I'm going to show up. So I'm telling you guys, in case there's a rule that we can't all show up, that's one in particular that I'm going to listen in on. So just letting you know that.
And then tied in with that, and I can send around the links to the meeting. That one is going to be on the 10th of February at 10:30. But I know at the last caucus, Member Holmes, you'd asked to see presentations like this. Tierney and I are going to work on getting them posted to the SharePoint site or the intranet. They're available on TDW, of course, but we'll try to compile them into one place for employees as well as board members. But you're right, we should get these out ahead of time so that if you want to watch those live, you can do that.
And I was thinking that was going to be tomorrow for some reason in what you said, but it's the 10th and I'm not going to be able to participate in that. Unfortunately, so I won't be there, other board members, if somebody does want to join, but it's one I definitely will follow up and watch.
Okay.
Jim, trust me, I'm on time. I follow all of the cannabis stuff.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for doing that.
That's it for me, unless there are other questions.
No, just could you give a quick update, Mark, on the tobacco and vaping products, what's happening with that particular bill, and then likewise the psilocybin, those two?
Yeah, the psilocybin, I believe, has a hearing on the 6th, so that's later on this week in the Senate. I know there's been some amendments to it. I'll take a look at those. I think it's still kind of moving as the governor's office and others weigh in on that. But yeah, and again, it still does have the LCB responsible for regulating the production side with
Department. Do we have any sense from the governor's office where they're at with that particular bill?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's one we've really asked for them to weigh in with a position, just so we know how to approach that and how we work with, with the legislature on it as we work to make sure it's implementable from our side.
Okay. And then what about the tobacco and vape?
Yeah, the tobacco, I believe those are scheduled for exec. I will double check that and send it back to you. And that's the House vehicle. There is a Senate companion, but the House one is the one that has already had a hearing, and I believe it's scheduled. That's 1203 is the flavor ban. I don't think the registry one is moving, but I will double check that and send it to you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any other questions for Mark? All right, hearing none, Mark, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, that concludes our formal agenda. Any updates or reports from board members? Any from staff?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That concludes this week's board caucus meeting. And so I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.